Good evening, and hope everyone is doing well today. To start off with Psalm 121. Probably should have bookmarked that before. I was on Psalm 119, which is so long. Okay. Song of Ascents. I lift my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help will come from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot falter. Your guardian does not slumber. So in Hebrew they say, Hine hine lo yanu velo yishan shomer Yisrael. Hine hine lo yanu velo yishan shomer Yisrael. That's this group I like is Shira Choir. Hashem lo yine bai shalom navoy navoy. Indeed, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. The Lord is your guardian. The Lord is your protective shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will guard you from all evil. He will guard your soul. The Lord will guard your going and your coming from now and for all time. So I love that song because it's like to know that God will be watching over, especially with the Psalms, it's like ask for that, that kind of protection and to know that God is always there for you. So I wanted to share that. And then before we were talking about Jacob, Joseph, the brothers, and so skip forward now to Moses. That was kind of an interesting story that the Pharaoh basically wanted to get rid of all the Jews. And there was a girl, Batia, who found Moses as a baby, and she decided to save him in a basket. And he became basically the representative for the Jewish people, asking Pharaoh to please let them go, let them be free. And so then there were the plagues, and that's why we eat the matzah for Passover, because there wasn't any time to let the bread actually rise, and then everyone was starving. So of course, because that's what God does, he provided for them. So God asked the Jews, would you like the Torah? These are the commandments. So we read the 10 commandments today, and that's what I wanted to share. So God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. This is a really interesting point to me because we can still have that mentality of the things that we would like to be free from, and that we have our own personal Egypt that tries to bring us back into those things. So it's kind of like an ongoing struggle, you could say. You shall have no other gods before me. So I think we've talked about that it's one God, and that absolutely no idol worship. I always get into that debate with people because one person or a few people, they'll ask me to go to, let's say, a yoga class, And then I have to explain that it's not really my thing because some of the statues, and then also the idea of kind of saluting to the sun or the moon, the universe, that those are creations of God. Those are not actually God. And I think that that's really important to remember, at least for the path that I'm trying to be on, which is a very narrow one. Also, another debate about manifestation. Absolutely. Our thoughts, our speech, our actions, everything is connected. How we were talking about the Tanya, right? Everything matters. Every little thing that we do, it's all important. There's no, oh, this doesn't matter. It all matters. And so the issue with the New Age is that it makes, or it can tend to make a person into their own God, to say, this is what I want, and I'm just going all for it. And we really want to check in with God to make sure that what we're asking for is the right thing, and that it won't lead us into something that isn't a good situation or isn't consistent with what God created us for, a certain purpose. In this journey, if that's how a person wants to live, by really dedicating their life to serving God, then that's what it is. And it has to be in that way. I guess I don't talk that much about business kind of things. Not trying to be any coach, any mentor, unless if someone has a question about how to open a business or about law school. I'm not even going to say I'm giving free advice, because then some people say, oh, I have this freebie, but send a word so that you can be on my email list or something like that. Always happy to help in any way I can. And actually, that's my purpose for trying to make these little videos, to try and find direction so that people can find meaning in their lives. So let's continue. Perfect, that we were just talking about, no idol worship. You shall not make for yourself a graven image or any likeness of what is in the heaven above, or on the earth below, or in the waters beneath the earth. So, okay, thank you. That's not something that I'm just inventing about having this praise for the universe. I used to do the same thing, okay? It's not anything wrong. It's just that I know that kind of the path where it led me is not on that narrow path that I'm trying to be on now. So if that's what someone is trying to do, is to trying to be more in touch with God, then they have to be really conscious about not going in that direction. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a zealous God, who remembers the iniquity of the fathers for the children, for the third and for the fourth generation of those who hate me, and doing kindness for 2,000 generations for those who love me and observe my commandments. So when I first started this journey, after things kind of went downhill and I just kind of decided, okay, I just need to make this change. And sometimes we want instant results. I think that that's kind of where people can fall into a trap, is to say, let's try and take this shortcut, and so that we can just right away get what we think is best, or what we think society will respect. And we will talk about later regarding the more dark psychology, that we really have to do this for ourselves. I think for a while I wanted to say, if I just get to this point, then I'll be recognized, and people will know my name, and that they'll think well of me, or something like that. But I think it's really important to just do it for the purpose of being good. It's not kind of like a vending machine where, let me just say this prayer for what I want, and then all of a sudden it'll happen. It's not something magic. It's more of a decision to say, this is how I want to live my life. I believe in God, and I'm not doing this so that I will have a certain reward, but at the same time, to have faith that I'm doing my best, and that God will do the rest, because that's how it works. We can't just sit back and say, I'm a believer, so now I don't have to do anything. No, we do our best, and we just have to have faith and believe and know that things will somehow work out for the best. You shall not utter the name of the Lord your God in vain. Indeed, the Lord shall not absolve him who swears by his name falsely. So I think that's pretty straightforward. If anyone has a question, we can go over that. I think just, okay. So that's, I guess, the whole thing. Everyone always asks, why do you write the G and then a dash and a D, or with Lord with a dash instead of the O? I guess that's kind of why, because we really want to be careful about not using the Lord's name in vain. Also, I don't know, maybe saying, oh my goodness, I'll say that. I don't know if that's wrong, but that's pretty much it. I won't say more than that. Remember the Shabbat day to sanctify it. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is Shabbat for the Lord your God. You shall not do any work, you, your son or your daughter, your manservant, or the stranger within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Shabbat day and made it holy. That one's difficult. Definitely difficult. How did I start? I think just by attending service, going to Shabbat dinner. That's like so nice, just to sit down at a meal with other people that have that same kind of mentality, and just to have a complete break. So much of society is moving really fast with, let's say, work, and always being on devices, and so much constant information. Is like those little hits of dopamine where being like recognized, let's say on social media or something like that. So taking a break in that way, I think is just kind of a reset. There's so many stories where someone had a store, let's say, and the Rebbe would tell them, don't have your store open on Shabbat. And the person would say, no, I'm going to lose money. I need to have the store open. And finally they tried it. Lo and behold, their profit actually increased. So there's always stuff to work on. This is a lifelong journey. Honor your father and your mother in order that your days be long upon the land which the Lord your God gives to you. So just everyone else just does their best to be respectful, to check in, spend some time, help. Obviously, we don't want to go too far with the help thing, because then we don't want to feel resentful or something like that. But to the extent possible, that's always a good thing. You shall not murder. You shall not steal. I was kind of thinking about that because sometimes it can be not so straightforward. For example, someone doing a scam, say, even though maybe it's not something direct, it's still deceptive. So I really think it's important that if someone is selling a product or a service, that they really need to have some dignity about it and provide what the person expects, because otherwise that might kind of fall into that territory. You shall not bear false witness against your fellow man. So I guess kind of don't make up allegations against people just, to kind of spite them or something like that. You shall not covet the house of your fellow man. So that one in our culture, I think, can be very difficult. So just have faith that Hashem will give us each what we need, so there's no reason to compare to someone else. Not to covet the wife of your fellow man, because, again, if this is what we believe in, that God has a soulmate for each of us, then we don't have a reason to look at what someone else has going on. So all the people saw the sounds and the flames. They trembled and they went to stand far away. God said not to fear, because this is in order to make us great and to keep us from sin. Can you imagine all these thousands of years ago, and all this stuff is just so much still applying? And I think that having these specific lessons is just very helpful to kind of provide guidance. So that's how I try to look at it. If I'm evaluating something, does it come from God? And if not, then we know what it is, because things can get kind of crazy, especially these days. And there's just a lot of negative influences out there, and we don't want to fall into that. We don't want to get any kind of foothold to Satan. It's a powerful force, and I saw a comment, something Jews pray to demons. I didn't even understand what that meant, because in no way, shape, or form is that something that I have ever been taught. And in fact, sometimes we have to make sure that we're very specific with our prayers to God, because Satan can listen and give us something that looks like everything we want, but if it doesn't come from God, then we know where that other place that it's coming from. And best believe that there will be some kind of payback required. So God said, "You shall not make before me gods of silver or gods of gold. Do not make it for yourselves. Make for me an altar of earth, and that there should be a sacrifice. I will come to bless you." So interesting that it wasn't just an altar made of stone, also a ramp. So we can have blessings. We just have to try our best to do the right thing and to discern where everything is coming from. So now I wanted to read one of the letters from the Rebbe that I just thought was helpful to me. Sorry about that. Okay. A vision of wholeness. So we have outer wholeness, which is emotional wellness that directs us to turn inward. And what we have to do is not retreat into our minds, but plug into the larger, healthy whole outside ourselves. So to see other people's journeys and help them when they're in need, to reflect that God is unconditionally at our side, no matter what's going on inside of us, to fulfill the unique tasks we have been divinely selected to fulfill in our own particular circumstances, to tend to our external selves, our bodies, schedules, occupations, and social environments, to set a time to study and routinely practice spiritual deeds, to refrain from denigrating our lives and characters and resolve instead to take up the divine calling of joy, to pursue our endeavors with proactive faith that things will turn out well, to utilize a bad mood as an opportunity for divine service, to refrain from battling disturbing thoughts and instead redirect our minds towards themes of light, to see our problems and challenges not as factors that isolate us, but as matters that unite us with others in similar circumstances. And finally, to expand out of our subjective ruminations and consult with objective mentors and knowledgeable friends. So that's just kind of a way to redirect ourselves when things are kind of in our mind that maybe we would rather kind of change course and focus on other things. Now to continue the dark psychology as the ongoing journey of social interactions, and it's just amazing how easy it is to bleed power the second that someone kind of is in need of help. What is the right way to help versus what is, I guess, kind of making a problem into one's own beyond that. And let's see. So here we go with some questions and answers. Do you feel like your definition of community has changed after these experiences? I actually, and then my answer, I actually do think that my sense of community has changed, because even if everyone else around is good, but there's that one person who will use any hardship against someone, then it makes things difficult to share on my part. But there's still value in being available for others to share in a group environment. So, someone mentioned about wanting to have another meeting because it always helped her to have a different perspective. And that is something that I always want to be there. I guess that's just kind of my nature. And that's why I need a little bit of this dark psychology in order to kind of protect my mind, I guess, because also with being a lawyer and having to deal with a lot of situations, I need to be able to just kind of disconnect and say, okay, I care about this situation and I want to do something, whatever I can, in order to help. But at the same time, I can't internalize it and make it my own problem. Also, then for other clients or people in my life, family, friends, I want to be there for them fully as well. So I'm still able to share something in general. And my lesson was that personal issues should only remain with a very limited number of people who have shown themselves to be of utmost trustworthiness over long periods of time. It really takes a while, even people, over decades sometimes, could just kind of switch up, or everyone changes, because before I wasn't into all this stuff. So that was also kind of an adjustment for people around me. Let's say for Shabbat, they were always, ready to all go out on a Friday. And then let's say when I stopped doing that, or being around to go shopping on a Saturday or to do whatever. So, yeah, I think that distinction feels healthy to me. Not withdrawing from the community, just being intentional about layers of access, being present, supportive, and available in a group setting still has value, and that the personal vulnerability is earned over time rather than assumed. So I think that's kind of a good place for me, is to share in a more general way that allows connection and mutual support without placing sensitive experiences in spaces where they could be mishandled. It's a way to be generous and self-protective. Um, when I learned that also about kind of getting to know people over a long period of time, that resonated. I think it's so easy to say, oh, I just met this person and they're like my new best friend and stuff like that. But you never know. You just never know. I don't like to, you know, necessarily assume that someone has a negative intention, but at the same time, I think we all know how it is that, person can be like a friend for a really long time, and then all of a sudden you could find out that they're like sharing business or something with other people, and just like, why have that hurt for no reason when there's other ways to kind of deal with it. So the discernment is not really fear. It's just kind of respect for someone's own personal story. And next question. Do you feel more at peace now that you've separated participation from personal disclosure? Part of me probably still wants to share in an open manner, but what I know now is that those things can be part of my prayer life or personal journey, while community participation can be a place with more limited access, just due to the fact of how some of these experiences have played out. So I think it makes sense that a person wants to share openly, especially if they have a tender heart, but we can't be naive out here. Like, you know how things go. And it's not so much closing off, but just kind of having discernment with some of those things and letting the deeper things live in the prayer life or personal journey, while keeping community participation when measured, is a way of honoring the spirituality and well-being, not suppressing the truth, just placing it where it can be held safely. And given how some of these experiences have played out, the choice just feels less like caution and more like wisdom earned. So a question that I have, if anyone wants to share something, are there any experiences in your life where you're able to identify some parallels with these situations? One answer I got that was shared, and I got permission to share it. I'm not just like putting people's business out there after I said that that's something I don't like. Yes, definitely. And I'm not going to say who it is. I've had experiences where I gave people access too quickly because I was trying to be understanding, supportive, or keep the peace. At the time, I thought explaining myself or smoothing things over was the mature thing to do. But looking back, it often gave the wrong people more room to distort things or cross boundaries. What I relate to most is what you said about patterns and early signals. I used to write those off as someone having a bad day or me being overly sensitive. Now I see that the first instance is usually information, not noise. I've also learned that privacy isn't dishonesty. Keeping certain things between me and my faith in a very small circle has actually brought more peace than trying to be fully open in every community space. Like you said, participation doesn't have to equal full access. So I'm not the only one. And hope this helps and that you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye now.